Have you ever felt like you're drowning in potential, but somehow can't seem to move forward? Like there's an invisible force holding you back, whispering that you're simply not trying hard enough. Take a deep breath. What I'm about to share might finally help you understand what's really happening inside you. The world has been telling you a painful lie, that your struggles with motivation are character flaws. But what if they're actually symptoms of something deeper? By the end of our journey together, you'll see your supposed laziness through entirely new eyes, not as a personal failing, but as a protective response that once served you well. Think about the last time someone called you lazy, or you called yourself that name. How did it feel in your body? That heaviness, that shame. The truth is, human beings are naturally motivated creatures. We're wired to move toward pleasure and growth, to create and connect. So when we find ourselves stuck, immobilized, procrastinating, something more complex is happening beneath the surface. As Carl Jung wisely noted, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your laziness isn't directing your fate. It's protecting you from something your unconscious mind perceives as dangerous. Consider a wild animal that freezes when sensing a predator. Is that animal being lazy? Or is it activating an ancient survival mechanism? Your immobility might be a freeze response, not a character defect. A protective pattern that once served you, but now limits your life. Think of a child who learns early that their enthusiasm gets mocked. Their excitement meets disappointment. Their efforts are never quite enough. This child doesn't consciously decide, "I'll stop trying." Their system simply adapts. It builds invisible walls to prevent future pain. These walls become so familiar that we don't even recognize them. We just feel the weight of not doing what we know we could. What parts of yourself did you have to lock away to survive your childhood? Your creativity? Your voice? Your authentic desires? Gabor Mate explains this phenomenon beautifully. The attempt to escape from pain is what creates more pain. When we judge ourselves for being lazy, we're adding another layer of suffering to an already painful pattern. What would it feel like to hold your stuckness with compassion instead of judgment? To be curious about it rather than ashamed? Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your resistance as a part of you, not an enemy, but a guardian who doesn't realize the war is over. Let's explore why we get trapped in these patterns that masquerade as laziness, and why it truly isn't your fault. Our nervous system develops in relationship with our environment. When that environment is consistently unsafe, unpredictable, or overwhelming, we adapt. Sometimes that adaptation looks like perfectionism, setting standards so high that we paralyze ourselves before we begin. Other times it manifests as procrastination, putting things off because completing tasks in the past led to criticism rather than celebration. Or perhaps it shows up as dissociation, a floating away from our bodily sensations when they become too intense to bear. The brilliant therapist Pete Walker calls this the inner critic's tyranny. The voice that berates us for not doing enough is actually a misguided protector. Think about a garden hose with knots tied throughout. The water is your natural motivation. The knots are adaptive responses to past wounds. No matter how much pressure builds up behind those knots, the water cannot flow freely until we gently, patiently untie each one. Your capacity to act has been knotted by experiences that taught you it wasn't safe to fully engage with life. Remember a moment when you were effortlessly engaged in something, perhaps as a child. That flow state is your natural condition. What happened between then and now? What messages did you internalize about your worth being tied to your productivity? Our culture pathologizes rest and glorifies hustle. We're conditioned to believe our value lies in what we produce, not who we are. As philosopher Byung-Chul Han observes, the achievement subject exploits itself until it burns out. We've internalized the demands of capitalism. Pause and ask yourself, whose standards am I trying to meet? Are these truly my values, or values I've absorbed from others? The trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk reminds us that the body keeps the score. Your apparent laziness may be your body's wisdom. When we push through fatigue, ignore our needs, and abandon ourselves to meet external expectations, our systems eventually rebel. That rebellion isn't laziness, it's intelligence. It's your body demanding the care and attention you've been programmed to deny it. Consider how we treat struggling plants. We don't shame them for not growing. We examine their environment, the soil, light, water. What if your struggles with motivation aren't personal failures, but signals that your emotional, physical, or spiritual environment needs adjustment? Take a moment to place a hand on your heart. Feel its faithful beating. Your body has been working for you every moment of your life. So how do we begin to free ourselves from these invisible traps? The journey starts with a profound shift in perspective. First, we must recognize that healing doesn't come through force, but through understanding. Judgment keeps us stuck. Curiosity sets us free. Try this. The next time you notice yourself procrastinating, don't immediately react. Instead, get curious about what's happening in your body. Is there tightness in your chest? A heaviness in your limbs? A fluttering sensation in your stomach? These sensations hold valuable information. As therapist Janina Fisher teaches, these bodily responses are often emotional flashbacks. Your system reliving past overwhelm or shame. By gently naming these sensations without judgment, you begin to separate current reality from old protective patterns. One powerful practice is to speak directly to your resistance. I see you're trying to protect me. Thank you. I'm safe now to take this step. This internal dialogue might feel strange at first, but it acknowledges the wisdom in your protective mechanisms while gently updating their information. The poet Rumi offers us beautiful guidance. Don't turn away. Keep your gaze on the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you. Your supposed laziness is that bandaged place. By turning toward it with compassion, you allow light to enter what has long been in darkness. Another practice is to drastically reduce the size of your next step. Is writing a book overwhelming? Commit to one sentence. This micro-action approach bypasses your brain's threat detection system. It says, "This is so small, there's no danger here." Over time, these small victories rebuild your nervous system's confidence. They create evidence that action doesn't lead to disaster. The Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. When we're trapped in patterns of avoidance, we're either ruminating on past failures or anxiously anticipating future ones. Coming back to the present, the only moment where action is possible, frees us from these time-traveling forms of suffering. Try this grounding practice. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This simple exercise brings you back to your senses, to the here and now, where your power resides. Remember, too, that motivation often follows action, not the other way around. The writer Elizabeth Gilbert calls this the physics of creativity. You don't need to feel inspired to begin. The simple act of beginning, however imperfectly, often generates its own momentum. What's one tiny action you could take right now? Even if it's just opening the document you've been avoiding or sending that first email. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi discovered that humans find deep satisfaction in the state of flow, being fully absorbed in meaningful challenges. The path back to flow often starts with creating conditions of safety, both external safety and internal emotional safety. Ask yourself, what environment helps me feel most at ease? What time of day am I naturally more energized? How can I honor these needs? As we bring our journey together to a close, I want you to remember one essential truth. Your worth has never been dependent on your productivity. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are a complex human being who adapted to survive in environments that may not have supported your full expression. These adaptations, these traps, were ingenious survival mechanisms. They protected you when you needed protection. But now, with gentle awareness and compassionate understanding, you can begin to release what no longer serves your growth. Healing isn't linear. There will be days when old patterns resurface. When they do, greet them as old friends who don't know you've changed. The path forward isn't about forcing yourself to overcome resistance. It's about creating the conditions where action feels safe and natural again. Today, I invite you to choose one small act of self-compassion. Perhaps it's simply placing a hand on your heart and whispering, "I understand why you're struggling." This gentle acknowledgement might be the first step in untying the knots that have restricted your natural flow for so long. Remember, you were born to create, to connect, to contribute in ways uniquely your own. That essential nature remains within you, waiting to be reclaimed.